It starts with understanding what are your values, what's important to you. Because if your goal setting and what your values are not being either discussed or even considered as part of that project, you're going to miss your mark. Everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Today on the show, we are talking about defining success for yourself and being able to make an assessment based on what is going on objectively. They're influencing how you see and define success. Speaking from a purely personal space, this was one of the most transformative things that happened to me once I figured out that success looks differently for everyone. And if my measure of success was based on what I saw other people have and other people accomplish, not only did I get very little fulfillment from accomplishments, no matter how hard I worked for that accomplishment, but also it wasn't long lasting. And I also realized whatever the success was, it didn't do anything to set me up for the next phase because I hadn't even taken any time to think about what to do next because I was so fixated on replicating what someone else has. As you know, on this platform, we focus on the micro wins and the incremental steps that we take forward in our professional and personal organizational skills, as well as the personal journey that we are all on in obtaining success. And so today, that's what the conversation is going to be about as I share a few things with you about some things that you can leverage and some things that I have been able to do that I found incredibly helpful in helping me refocus whenever I decide to start a project, whenever I decide to do something new. I had to do this when I decided to launch this podcast because I really needed to define what my measures of success were. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, you know that I need your help. We are building a community together and we are finding and looking for ways to have this platform become home to some very difficult conversation, enlightened conversation, and we need more like-minded people to be a part of that conversation. Anything we talk about on this podcast that resonates with you or you know someone with whom the conversation and the topics being discussed could be helpful to them, please like, subscribe, and rate and review the podcast. This is how the podcast becomes discoverable. And I really appreciate you taking this extra minute, extra second to rate and like and subscribe to the podcast to help us grow this thing. Why is defining success so important? We are presently living in an age where it's all about the 10 seconds reel, right? Real highlights of everybody and how they are living their best lives. Social media has made it that we cannot, no matter how hard we try, not be influenced by what we see to some degree. And so I just believe in having real conversations about real things. It is impossible to get on social media and see how somebody with the same skill level, same age, and same skill set is talking to you about how they made $100,000 this month, or they are talking to you about how they are doing so incredibly well on apps. I don't think that anyone who's online sharing and talking about the successes that they are having, they are doing so because they want to make you feel bad about your life. I don't think so. I think that for the most part, people share those successes online because they understand that it could be really encouraging for anyone out there who is in transition and in that phase of their lives where they haven't figured out quite yet what they're going to do and what they're going to do next. It could be really powerful for them to see an example of somebody that is their age, has their same skill set, and how that person is building something incredible with a powerful message of you can do it too, right? So we do have that corner of the internet that exists that brings that. The importance of defining success for yourself comes in being able to see images like that, stories like that, and that not translating into you feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm doing nothing with my life. I'm so lazy. Look at her. She doesn't even know how to do this, or he doesn't even know how to do that, or he's not even smart enough because I know them. And yet, look at the success that they're having. I don't think that that's what you want, seeing other people in their moment of success and sharing and celebrating that. That shouldn't be what it evokes, right? And if it does, it means that your own compass of what success is off. You have not taken the time and energy to figure out what success actually means to you. Because if you have, that should just be a moment you clap for. It should be a moment that invigorates you because it should give you hope that whatever dreams and projects that you are working on, they deserve the hard work, they deserve the long hours, and they deserve the energy that you're putting in, right? So it's important to meaning set. Meaning setting is just a fancy terminology about clarity of purpose of why you do the things that you do. If it's not your first time talking and hearing me speak, you know that I am big on purpose. For example, Success in Doses as a podcast was created because I was ready to do things on my own terms. I was ready now to finally use my voice after spending a really long time trying to figure out what that voice is. It's very important that you're transparent about what that why is. I didn't create it because I'm chasing some ascension per se. I want the podcast to be successful. That's because I understand firsthand that young professionals are looking how to navigate the various chapters of their professional careers and how to level set in a healthy, balanced way that transcends understanding how to do their jobs. There are a lot of resources out there that are teaching you how to do your job, but nobody is teaching you about all of the other components in actuality that may have a bigger impact on your success, on your development as a young professional, as a young entrepreneur, as a mom balancing it all. There's not much out there that is giving you information and guiding you on that through just storytelling and lived experiences, which is what this is. I am not a clinical psychologist. All of what you hear me share here is based on my lived experiences, the things that have worked for me and the things that have failed miserably in my journey to attain success, right? So it starts with meaning setting and understanding why you are doing the thing that you're doing. For me, this podcast, the meaning is super simple. It's just being ready to do things on my own term and finally being comfortable with using my voice in a way that I am certain it can make a difference. So that's the first part. You have to figure out the meaning of success for yourself. Once you have that, then you can start strategically doing certain things and making certain moves that can clearly align you and put you on a path to accomplishing exactly that. So let's start there. So the first thing on this journey of clearly isolating success is going to be understanding how harmful comparison can be to your journey. I know that everybody's familiar with the slogan, comparison is the thief of joy. That is true. It really is a thief of joy. Constant comparison to me is one of the biggest distractors on your journey. All of the time and energy you invest in monitoring, in reacting to, in responding to other people's journeys, their accomplishment, and comparing yourself to them and how come you're not where they are takes time and energy away from time you can invest in your own journey. So the first thing we need to do on our way to clearly understanding what our version of success looks like is leaving other people alone in their journey to finding that out for themselves. Some people are comfortable with their journey to success being messy, being on display for everyone to see. That is how they live out their most truest and authentic versions of themselves. Good for you. I'm here for this. I support it. Do you? For others, this may be the most frightening idea to you. The idea that like the messy, the good, the bad, and the ugly has to be on Front Street while you figure out what you're going to do. For some people, that's just not part of the equation for them. They're not built that way because they're strategic thinkers, they're planners. They believe in sitting down and writing it out and really mapping out their journey and their process to getting to where they need to go before they take a single step. And if that is you, I want you to know that if that is the authentic version of you through anything, your journey to success is going to be that way too. It's going to require you to have that clarity and have all of those plannings. But I want to warn you about perfectionism and the fact that it is okay to start before you are ready. I am telling you right now, I am not ready to be here launching a podcast by myself because there are so many components to doing this that I am just learning as I go. Yet, here we are. Yet, here you are supporting me in that pursuit of success. And so give your audience the benefit of the doubt. Give the people that are on the other side of your creativity, of your hard work, of your commitment, the benefit of a doubt that they are going to be appreciative that you are showing up for them, no matter how small it is, instead of waiting that you've perfected the thing to deliver it to them. And I know that as pharmacists, this idea is like insane. Like some of you are listening, like, what are you talking about? It's important that we separate what our professional obligations are from our personal obligations and our personal understandings and pursuits of success, right? In all of our professional lives, if you're in healthcare, the idea that you're going to wing it and you're going to figure it out as you go along, no, because we know what's on the line. Literal human lives is on the line, right? So it's not going to fit in that scenario. I just want to go on record as saying that that's not where you want to wing it. But if you have a creative side to you that you've been wanting to unleash and you feel like leaning into this creative part of you can actually enhance the professional that you are, don't wait to be ready. You can start anywhere and you can start right now. And I promise you that nobody is going to judge you for it. The right people will support you for exactly how you come in and exactly where you are. Building the compass of success for yourself. It starts with understanding what are your values, what's important to you. Because if your goal setting and what your values are not being either discussed or even considered as part of that project, you're going to miss your mark. 5 core values that matter the most to you. What is that? Because in starting this podcast, I had to really sit down and think about it. What are some things that I value that I want to make sure this podcast accomplishes? Impact over volume. I want to know that the podcast is going to be impactful more than getting hundreds and thousands of downloads and listeners. But the impact on the few people who are going to show up and listen, that's important to me. My creativity. I have been very open on the fact that I'm not a very creative person and all this. And as it turns out, I learned in therapy that this is a defense mechanism. I use this to protect myself from putting in the time and energy that is necessary to build my creative skills because I am phenomenal at coming up with unique ideas and unique ways to tackle age-old problems. That's creativity, right? And so being scared to execute that, those two don't go together. It is just fear. Freedom of expression, right? It took me such a long time to find my voice. It took me such a long time to find my voice. And once I found it, then came the next most difficult part of being comfortable using my voice, right? It's not automatic. I think a lot of people think that the struggle is finding your voice, but after you find your voice, you then are in this space of how do I use this? How do I use my voice in a way that is going to be meaningful, impactful, but also help me be better aligned with who I am? Identify your metrics of success, right? I had to do that for the podcast. How many listeners and downloads am I hoping for on the first week after I launched this podcast? How many people listen to the podcast to completion? How many brand partnerships can I secure before the podcast even goes live? I had to decide what those metrics were in order to know how I need to work towards them. But if you're not goal setting and micro goal setting, it becomes difficult because sometimes once that definition of success comes into focus for you, it gets overwhelming very quickly. Because once I had a name for the podcast, then I was like, what do I do next? Is it cover art? What do I do next? A hosting platform? What are those? How does that work? What's next? How do I record? But I was doing all of this in the trenches work and hadn't actually done the work of how many people would listen to my opening week for me to feel accomplished. How many people? How realistic should I set that goal? Or how delusional should I be with that goal, right? So all of that comes into play when you're success setting. The next thing about your personal success compass is anchoring in purpose and not perfection. I've touched on it a little already. I won't stay here too long. If you wait for everything to be perfect, I'm telling you, by the time you think it's perfect, you've missed out on time. You've missed out on the opportunity for innovation and disruption that would have been exclusively yours. Don't wait for that. Focus on purpose and less on perfection. That would be it. And we're going to take a little break and come right back where we then get into committing to the journey. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Success in Doses, and I am your host, Saley. Today, we are talking about defining success for ourselves and the type of deeply personal journey that is for each and every one of us. I am sharing some pearls with you about all of the various things and how I personally went through my own personal success journey and success setting and defining what success would mean for me as a solo podcast host. In this segment, we are going to talk about committing to the journey and not the outcome. A few weeks ago, I shared a reel on Instagram that talked about motivation versus discipline and the difference between these two things. And the point of that was just that everyone waits until they are motivated and they are inspired. What I've learned about my journey to getting to this point is that motivation is fleeting. It doesn't last. You're motivated to maybe start, but you may not be motivated to continue. You're motivated to maybe batch create 5 episodes in one day, but maybe not motivated to sit down and edit all 5 of those that same day. And so the commitment to your journey really will be a testament of your discipline and understanding that discipline is really where the root of success is. Anything you don't have discipline around just doesn't move as quickly, as fast, and as well as it possibly could. Discipline, I think, is one of the most grossly underestimated skill set on all of our journey to success. We either anchor ourselves around what I'm trying to do is meaningful, what I'm trying to do is impactful, what I'm trying to do is going to help people. We anchor a lot of our energy and motivation to start around that. And then when we don't have the same response, if I launch and only 3 people listen to this podcast, that's not going to stop me from continuing because I am disciplined and believe in what I am doing and understand that there's more than just recording and publishing and telling people go listen. I have to do a lot of research and be tuned in to what you all give me back as things you want me to talk about more, talk about less, things you want me to touch on. But without the discipline and committing myself to this being a long-term journey as a creator, as a mentor, as serving as your advisor in some capacity, this is going to fizzle out very, very quickly. Now let's talk about failure on our way to success. This is going to be its own segment, but it's important here in defining personal success that we talk a little bit about the fact that the goal can change along the way. The fact that the goal may need some refining along the way, and we should be ready for that. But I speak from experience when I tell you that can be really hard because weirdly enough, it has this weird sense of like shame that gets attached to the goal. So for example, if my goal is to have 1,000 people listen to my podcast the first week, 1,000 downloads the first week that it launches, and I only get 100, recalibrating my expectations and goal for listenership may I expect, knowing who I am, that I may have some feelings of disappointment and shame around that, and feeling like, what did I not do? Did I not promote enough? Did I not reach out to people enough to let them know that this was launching? The message here is that you need to allow your goals and your definition of success, you need to allow that to be recalibrated and give yourself a lot of grace through that process. The conversations and the thought you allow to take hold when you have to recalibrate and realign and redefine success can be really, really tough on your mental. It can affect the discipline that you have about continuing on that course. But I am here to tell you that one of the most rewarding things you can do for yourself on your way to success is pushing through. Is pushing through all of that mess, that gunk, that loud, annoying noise that is going to be ringing in your ear all the time about how you tried, you failed, you need to leave it alone. No, you tried, you learned, and you need to keep going. That needs to be your mentality. I don't believe in like failure being this terminal destination. I really don't. I think that if your commitment is continuous personal and professional growth, continuous personal and professional improvement, there is no endpoint. If no one's told you that before, I love that I am breaking that to you. If your commitment is to continuously be better, if your commitment is to be better today than you were yesterday and prepare for the opportunity to learn and grow tomorrow in a way that wasn't afforded to you today, there is no end point. And if you subscribe to this mentality, you start entering the growth mentality space, which is an incredible thing for you both professionally, personally, in your business, even in your personal relationships. This could be transformative because you then are operating in a space where you are always keenly paying attention to where the opportunities are for you to get better. And so on this journey, as things begin to get messy and things begin to need realignment and recalibration, you need to give yourself a lot of grace and you need to give yourself a lot of love because it is not easy having to recalibrate and pivot and reinvent or even let go of an idea you felt like would have worked, and you have data. Your listeners are telling you that they're not interested in that. And it's time to recalibrate and rethink or maybe redesign that idea. That's huge. And I wanted to make sure we highlighted that. The last thing I want to talk about on defining personal success is daily habits. We are going to get an opportunity to talk about daily habits in far more detail on this podcast. But today I wanted to plant the seed and tell you that if you took a moment right now and you thought about every day, what are the things that you do every single day without even thinking about it? That's your routine. That's what a daily routine is. And these didn't become routine accidentally. For some of us, they became routine out of necessity, right? Me waking up every single morning, when I get downstairs, the first thing that happens before I turn on my Keurig, before I take a look to make sure that lunch and breakfast and all those things are prepared for my son, is to take my medications. And that's because of the monumental impact of not taking my medication has on my life, on how I function, on my ability to go out there and chase my dreams. Because if I get sick, all this goes on pause indefinitely. And I have zero interest in that. So pay attention to the routines of your day. What are the things that you're doing every single day that you don't even think about? Once you have that isolated, then you can start thinking about what are the opportunities in my day to do very small things that move my journey to success forward. That for me is making sure that I pause every single morning. It doesn't matter how late I am running. It doesn't matter how early I wake up in the morning. I am committed and determined to have a morning reflection. I have to write down what day I plan to have. It's so important that you do this because it level sets, and it also helps you go out into the world with your mind conditioned around the type of day you're going to have. So tell you a story real quick. After my mother passed away in July, my daily goals had one new thing that got added to it. Because since July, there has not been a single day where I have woken up where she hasn't been the first thought that came to my mind. From the moment I wake up, she's first on my mind. I think of her, I say a quiet prayer for her, right? But I realize that that's kind of become part of my morning routine now. It doesn't matter how quickly or slowly I jump up. Once I'm awake in the morning, I think of her and I say a prayer for her. This has become such a peaceful thing that I have been doing for myself, because no matter how busy and chaotic of a day I'm having, I start with something that is deeply and truly meaningful to me. And in my pursuit for success, my mother will always be the number one person on my mind in all of my pursuit, because she has been the single most influential person in my life, in my understanding of what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a giving person, what it means to be a person in a community, and what it means to be fiercely driven. And I confess this all the time, in that I am fiercely competitive, and know that I am fiercely competitive, but have worked on it over time in therapy to recognize when that's starting to become toxic. The point I want to make here is that how you start your day has to have a place in the bigger picture of the success you are pursuing. It has to. Otherwise, you are relying on luck, like you're relying on external factors when you haven't figured out yet that it really does start with you and how you show up and how you position yourself to have a successful day, a successful career, a successful project. And so key takeaways from today's podcast and today's episodes are the following. You have to define success on your own. It is imperative that your definition and your understanding of success is intended and influenced by constant comparison to others. This is because you have had a chance to sit down and reflect on what success actually means to you. Very, very personal journey with this. You have to build a personal compass for success that begins with building your values, understanding why you want to pursue this thing and why you want to pursue said project and why you want to do such thing. Your values are going to be huge and paramount in that, in helping you determine what that success is going to look like. And then set metrics of how you're going to measure the goals that you're setting. This is so important. And setting those metrics, we have to then be ready to recalibrate and making sure that we commit to the journey, not just the outcome. And in that journey, it's very important that we understand that milestones, the little wins along the way, can be some of the best motivators and ammunition on our journey, on our way to getting that bigger picture to come to mind. So commit to the journey, not the outcome. It's all about the journey. Do not commit on the outcome, because then you miss all of the learning opportunities and all of the things that are on your journey to help you figure out what success actually means to you and how you're going to get there. Course correct with grace. If you must recalibrate your plan, do that. But shame and guilt and all of these ugly, heavy things have no room on your journey to success. It is going to get very heavy, and shame and all of what others are going to think about how you're doing and how successful it is and how it's flopping, and there's no room for that. Last but not least is your daily habits that reinforce your personal success. Isolate what your daily habits are and look for opportunities to insert other things that align with the overarching theme and goal of becoming successful or accomplishing that big goal. Reflection is an important part of this because you will need to sit down and really, really define what are those things I do every day and how do they contribute to me becoming successful. And if you cannot isolate at least one or two things, it's time to start thinking about creating them. Because I assure you that taking the time to go through this exercise, you move different, you interact with the world different, and you seize the opportunities that get placed in front of you with a whole new energy. That's all for today's episode of Success in Doses. I'm your host, Saley, reminding you that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress worth celebrating. Have a question or suggestion for future topics? Connect with me on social media at Success in Doses Pod or visit our website at successindoses.com. Remember, the journey to success isn't about giant leaps. It's about consistency, resilience, and giving yourself the right dose of opportunity, rest, and perseverance along the way. Keep taking those small intentional steps. They add up to something beautiful. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a rating, or share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps our community grow one dose at a time. Until next time, everybody. Bye.